Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Springfield at Capitol Airport at the FBO near the main entrance to the Capitol Airport, where there are 5 rooms that house an enormous amount of aviation history, model planes, magazines, all kinds of things that if you care about aviation, you would be well placed to see. Job Conger has been in this, well, he's had this museum in his basement for decades, but 3 years ago, he was able to move his collection here to Capitol Airport. And Job, wasn't it nice to stretch out a little bit?
You wouldn't believe how nice. I had halls that were halfway full of bookshelves, so anyone with a large waistline could not make it down the hall, which included me on.
Well, it kept your weight in check anyway, because you had to get in there.
It did.
But just, do you have any idea how many model airplanes you have in your collection?
In terms of built model aircraft, I have approximately 600. In terms of aircraft and kits, probably 2,000 to 3,000. I haven't counted them lately.
Yeah, but they're all here now.
Yes.
And if you had to put your hand on one that somebody was curious about, I'll bet you could find it.
I could. I've been dealing with them so long.
It's incredible. I want to give the audience some flavor about how much you care about aviation and how much you have done. You are the author of Springfield Aviation, which I'm holding in my hand here. And I'm holding an autographed copy. It looks like a terrific book. And one of the things that's very interesting about this is, if you look at this picture here, this is the first Springfield Airport, and people might not be aware that at that time, the infield at the racetrack, at the fairgrounds, the Illinois State Fairgrounds, was our airport in 1910. You had these biplanes flying in 1910. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Initially for the Illinois State Fair. Yeah. And it was all arranged through the Department of Agriculture at the time. And Wright Exhibition Flyer was the first flyer to fly from Springfield.
That's terrific.
In terms of an exhibition flight in an airplane.
Now, you go back a long way with aviation because your father took this picture of you with your dog under the fuselage of an airplane. And where is this taken?
This was taken in front of Hangar 1 here at this airport, literally 35 feet from where we're standing.
You know, you should be flattered. You haven't changed a bit.
No, I haven't. No.
Okay. Now, I was surprised to learn, Joe, that as far back as November of 1910, there were aeronautics magazines, and you actually have an original copy here. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. Where do you come by this stuff? By
corresponding with people since 1966, maybe 1965, since high school. I graduated high school in 65, and I've been interested in airplanes seriously before then, but I never conceived the idea of establishing a collection that would be shared with the public until about college days, and I really began taking it seriously then.
To tell you how old this magazine is, the Wright brothers flew their first flight in 1903. There was not a mad dash for everybody to get into aviation at that time, so by 1910 there wasn't that much going on, was there?
No, there wasn't, but there were the exhibition flyers were the superstars of their day. Wherever they flew, it would be like the circus is coming to town, just about. The first balloon flight from Springfield occurred in 1857. There's no reason to believe that Abe saw it happen, but the first balloon flight from Springfield was an exhibition flyer. People had been flying in balloons only since 1783. So already there was exhibition flying, mostly in balloons. A Wright exhibition flyer came to the United States, or came to Springfield. They had to cut down a few trees to make way for the landing and takeoff space. And that really riled some of the people that they had to cut down trees for these newfangled flying machines. And but it was a hit, and they were making tons of money doing it, and they were dying all over the place. The first woman to die in an airplane accident was Julie Clark, who died flying from the State Fair racetrack infield.
No kidding. I'll be darned. Now, over your right shoulder, you can't help but notice this wonderful collection. This is just a small part of your collection. But what you've done here, on the top 3 rows, you have arranged all these to a certain scale. Describe it to us.
1/72nd scale means that 1 inch on the model airplane equals 6 feet on the real thing. So what we have here is the aircraft models depict aircraft in the same size relative to each other.
So where else are you going to see this Vigilante right here?
Right.
Next to the Lockheed Recon drone, which is of course one that people rarely see anyway.
Right.
Or right next to, let's go down the line here, this German advanced trainer. So you get a real good idea of how they would have stacked up in size. And
Exactly.
now this, you've got a story about Stukas.
Yes.
Would you pick that one up for me and show it to us?
This is a model of an unusual Stuka. The Stuka was a dive bomber used early in the war by Hitler for invading Poland, for invading France. This particular model has some unusual bulges here that were tried experimentally to return wounded soldiers from the Eastern Front to medical attention in Germany.
No kidding.
Or further back. It was purely an experiment. Each of these held 2 litter patients on stretchers. And you can imagine putting 4 more people aboard the airplane, and also these bulges were just horrendous. The airplane had horrible flying characteristics.
Okay, so it never, it was so far, it couldn't get off the ground, so
the whole
to speak.
experience lasted maybe...
Never got off the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
But it's interesting because people would never know this experiment even happened without the model.
Right. And modelers can buy, or over the years have been able to buy special add-on aftermarket things so that they could put these on. This model was donated by a model builder in Indianapolis. And I cannot take credit for building this one, but I built probably 90% of the models that you see here.
I love this because you see this stealth fighter, this Lockheed stealth fighter, right next to a Spirit of St. Louis. Now, what would this Spirit of St. Louis mean?
This is a composite model. I made this with the fuselage and wings and tail of the Spirit of St. Louis. I didn't even repaint the airplane, but I stretched the fuselage and added a canopy from a German World War II fighter plane just to make this fictional, purely fictional model. So one can have some fun with model airplanes as well as paying attention to historical accuracy.
And this would be an example of a very early bomber.
Yes.
I mean, there weren't many planes flying in 1919.
Right.
Were there bomber capabilities in 1919?
Yes, bombers were first flown in World War I, and this is a late war British bomber that was modified to be the first to fly across the Atlantic, which it did with the British flyers Alcock and Brown in 1919. And all the bomb equipment was removed, and they put in extra fuel tanks and all that good stuff. But where else can you see a World War I bomber next to a Beechcraft Bonanza?
And we'll show that up here, right here. And that shows you just how big and how small each of those models would be if you got to see them next side by side. Now here's a fellow we're going to talk about later on. He was a famous, well, not famous, should have been famous, Springfieldian, who was a decorated pilot in World War II, and his name was, what was his name?
John Thornton Walker.
Walker. And we'll tell his story later because it's a local tie-in and it's a very touching story.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. As we go down, we see these immense models on the top. And again, these are what is the scale again?
1/72nd scale.
1/72.
1 inch on the model equals 6 feet on the real airplane.
Okay.
So the stealth fighter here is as large.
Okay, it's this one right here, the stealth fighter.
Is as large to the others.
Terrific. Okay, we are going to take a little break from here. We're going to show, actually what you do here is we're going to come back to this room and show some more of this stuff. But what you do here is you also have additional rooms where your intake and your research and your model building and all that sort of stuff goes on.
Right.
And we're going to take a look at how all that works together.
Excellent. This is where people find the museum. This is the Whitman sampler of the AeroKnow Museum.
It's on the main level.
Right. All elements upstairs are sampled here. If someone is serious about aviation, wants to know more, has the time, when I'm here, I'm happy to escort any visitor throughout the entire collection.
Okay, well let's go up there then.
Excellent.
Okay, Job. Now, a lot of people don't get up here, but they're welcome to come up here if they want to. You call this, I guess it's an intake room where
Right.
when people make donations to this museum,
Exactly.
whether it be print or magazines, model airplanes, they come in here and it gives you a chance to look at them and see what it needs to be done.
Exactly.
And a lot needs to be done to these models. Of course, when you've been building them for 50 years, you're going to have a lot of things that need to be repaired, right?
That's right. And what we have here is a combination of models that were finished and then lost parts over the years, that were displayed, that were not finished. I'm the kind of guy who has 50 different model airplanes under construction at one time, and sometimes things happen. They get set aside and almost forgotten.
Sure.
But there are some set aside projects that I will finish here,
Yeah.
and that I will repair and restore here.
Well, okay, let's take a look at, let's pick one out. How about this U.S. Air Force? Is that a bomber? What is
Yes.
that? Okay.
This is a model, a 1/72nd scale model of a B-47. They called it the Stratojet. This was really the first modern swept wing bomber that the U.S. Air Force applied. And it first flew in 1947, believe it or not.
Wow.
So we share the same birth year. So this model, I built it decades ago, displayed it, got a lot of nice comments. This is a late version of the B-47 that was used for weather. They used to fly into hurricanes and things like that and see what was happening. That's why they had the weather band on the tail.
Yeah.
So you'd know if you saw this with a weather band on it, they're not carrying nuclear bombs. This is used for a peaceful purpose.
But it could have been.
It could have been,
Yeah.
and it was
And-
during the early years.
And these have to be somehow
These have to be
replaced, huh?
restored. These fell off the model, and it was actually a 6-jet bomber. And so what I need to do when I have the time is restore the engines and then find a canopy that goes over where the pilot and co-pilot
Good luck
sat.
finding a canopy.
Well, I have a kit in the collection of the same model, unbuilt. And what I will do is I will take that canopy and mount it on here after I have refinished the model, because it's a little ragged. Air Force planes tended to get ragged, but not this ragged. So
And it hasn't even seen
it
airtime.
would insult any Air Force personnel to imagine this being displayed in this condition. And I won't do that because
Okay.
I love the Air Force.
I'd like to look at every one of these, but we can't. But just to show folks what goes on, okay, you get boxes of materials in here.
Yes.
Every one of these articles is going to get trimmed because you don't want everything that's in here. So you trim that, you put it on a piece of paper to file away.
Right.
And you got your work cut out for you here.
Exactly. There's a lot to be done here. It's a good thing that I'm something of a Virgo, something of a perfectionist, because I have the patience. Well, I have the patience of Job. I have the patience and inclination to do what needs to be done, and this is just very piecemeal. Lots of hours, but lots of results.
Yeah.
Not only for now. Not only for the person who comes here in 6 weeks, but for the person who comes to this collection in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Because this is being done today, the future people will benefit from the work that's done today.
A lot of the stuff that you have here and ready to put out, a lot of it, stuff like it, has already been categorized. It's in cases and file cabinets, etc. And we'll see that. But first, I want to. You have an area here where you have some clay model builders that come in and they gather here and they do some building. Can we go in there next?
Absolutely.
Let's go. I'll follow you.
Thank you.
Okay, another room. Oh, Job, I can see you got a few more kits to put together here, huh?
A few.
They're everywhere. You call this the processing room.
Yes.
And one of the, and I misspoke earlier. I said some of your friends and colleagues come in here and build clay models. That's not what they do.
No.
They do plastic now, right?
Right. In fact, there's a group called the Springfield Area Plastic Modelers Club, and they build everything. They build airplanes, tanks, boats, cars, and everyone's welcome to the club that meets second and fourth Wednesdays of the month. And we simply provide space for them to meet. And it's always good fun, easy conversation about anything people want to talk about.
And if you need help, you can find someone that might help you out a little
Exactly.
bit, huh?
Some of the members have helped around the collection also.
After you, why don't you take the table
Okay.
over there and we'll show a little bit about what goes on here.
Okay. Three things are happening at this table, and the empty space is provided to other model builders who want to build here. We have new kits. This is a model of the first French jet airplane called the Triton. This is made, the kit is made in France, and I'm putting it together for display downstairs and at model shows and other places.
Now, people, most Americans would never have heard of or ever get to see one of these.
Right, right. You wouldn't know it existed unless perhaps in a book or something like that. The French were notorious for airplanes that insulted the very air with their presence. They were so ugly. And but the French also gave us Brigitte Bardot, so you know it all evens out. So in addition to the Triton, this is a model being restored. This is a model of a Waco CG-4. This is a model of a glider, a troop-carrying glider that delivered soldiers, infantry to France on D-Day 1945.
No kidding.
June 6, 1945, and that accounts for the D-Day invasion stripes that kept the friendlies from shooting the good guys. The word was, if it had stripes on it, don't shoot.
Black and white. So I assume you could see this then at night or in very low light, too.
Exactly, exactly. It was brilliantly planned. And so we owe lots of lives. A lot of soldiers gave their lives during that invasion. And this actually, the Germans invented the troop-carrying silent invasion concept, but the U.S. really developed it.
Perfected it, huh?
Yes, the U.S. and the British.
Wow.
And this is a model that I'm restoring for a friend. This is a factory-made model, but he needs new propellers. And so from the scrap box, I found new propellers, and I'll be mounting new propellers in his model.
In his Eastern Airlines plane,
Right.
huh? Okay. And of course, it takes a lot of paint and glue and everything that someone. And there's some parts in there too that if you can find something you need, you might find what you need in there.
All right, and this will last us well into the 2030s. This much material, and this is the motto, of course, of all the model builders. And so
they all look like that once in a while.
absolutely, I resemble that from time to time.
Well, come on over here with me because there's more to do.
Yes.
What you're trying to do here is you're trying to get these slides, photographs, old newspaper clippings, everything. You want to get them digital.
Exactly.
Right? Because storing all this stuff, the
Right.
actual paper takes up a lot of room, and it's not going to last forever, is it?
Right, humidity, sunlight. This is a
Were you going to show this?
yes, this is a newspaper clipping from World War II. This was actually published in the State Journal Register in World War II, and just a recruiting ad.
You can scan that, and
Yes.
and these slides. You took these slides, didn't you?
Yes.
And I'm looking at what kind of a plane am I looking at here anyway?
That's a C-133. It was a large cargo transport before the C-5 came along. And a visitor to the museum recently told me that he flew C-133s, and I showed him the slides, and he was delighted to see some of his old bird included in this collection.
Yeah. So this gets scanned, and then you'll make a CD, and then you'll be able to think of all the space you'll save, too.
Right. And there will be CDs with nothing but C-133 pictures on them, or P-51 Mustang pictures on them, and that kind of thing. And available to anyone who supports the museum.
Terrific. Okay, let's go see what else.
Okay.
What else you got? Okay, Job, let's say that I want to do some aviation research.
Okay.
And there's space research. These are Russian aircraft, I assume.
Yes.
France, Germany, Australia. I could go in any of those drawers and probably find the aircraft or the battle or whatever I was interested in learning about.
Absolutely.
And on this side, what do we have? This is U.S.?
U.S. aircraft, the entire row. And among the U.S. aircraft, we have files about a very famous torpedo bomber called the TBF or the TBM Avenger. And this is the torpedo bomber, the type of airplane that was flown by George Herbert Walker Bush in World War II.
And he was shot down, wasn't
He
he?
was actually, yes, he was shot down. His back gunner was killed. We have indexes to magazines where you can find information. These are technical illustrations made during wartime
Incredible.
that have found their way into the collection, as well as magazine articles. Popular Science. This is what they were reading in Popular Science in 1943, with the Avenger on the cover showing a strike against an enemy carrier.
Let's get a picture of that while we're looking at it here.
Yes.
This gives you a good idea what Popular Science, and of course, they had it was very dramatic because they did drawings, of it. Do you have a photograph of that plane in there?
Yes, I do. Here's a classic.
That's a good one.
This is an early war photograph of an Avenger. And this was a modern torpedo bomber that came along in strength after the Battle of Midway. A few were used during the Battle of Midway in June of 1942, but they really came in numbers after that.
So virtually any plane that you wanted to do research on, you'd have this kind of information in this room, virtually.
Absolutely.
Incredible.
I can't promise lots and lots of information about every airplane that's ever been made, but there are everything, including home-built aircraft, including experimental aircraft, that kind of thing. And I'm always looking for more. This is a worldwide collection here.
Let's take a look at, I think you saw some kits that you have put together.
There are a few in a room just down the hall. It's only getting started, you understand.
Oh my goodness, Job. Oh my goodness. I don't assume you ever really plan to put them all together?
No, I would say I will be happy if 20% of what you see here is built.
Every wall, almost to the ceiling. Well, actually, collecting doesn't mean you intend to put them all together, because they're a piece of history just in the box, aren't they?
Right. People collect wine that they don't intend to drink, but they might resell sometime.
Or they just want to have it.
Yes, exactly.
And it's fascinating to see how models have changed over the years. And
Exactly.
I guess, that's part of it. And also this international flavor that you have. I mean, this is from the Soviet era, probably the 1970s. This is something like the Sputnik or the manned spacecraft.
Exactly. We know from the figures.
Oh, look at the figures.
There were people involved at the time.
Remarkable.
And this might have been purchased by a correspondent of mine who lived in the Soviet Union and traded to me for U.S. kits. Kits that we considered everyday, ordinary, were just so cherished, like blue jeans used to be cherished in the old Soviet Union. And so I have corresponded with people all over the world who have traded our bountiful industry here in the States for their industry there.
Yeah. We're looking at one of the old models here. This is one of the old balsa wood models, and this whole kit weighs about 6 ounces. It's so light, and you can see what they were making planes out of. Its kits long time ago. Rob Fisher, you manage the FBO here that houses this museum. Before 3 years ago, he had all this stuff in his basement. Nobody could see it.
That's correct. Yeah.
It's terrific.
Yeah, I met Job about 10 years ago, and he's been really needing space for quite some time. So when I finally got to his house and saw his collection and saw these models and everything that he has, I knew that he really needed some space.
Yeah.
So, the two really seem to meld real well together, bring the model collection and the aviation historian into the area where pilots come. And we've had a real good return from pilots that have came through, transient pilots, really amazed at what they've seen and seen models that they built when they were kids, when they were, at multiple different ages.
And pilots become pilots because they love planes anyway.
We do.
And so we do. And it gives it's wow, look, a whole room full of them.
That's true. That's true.
And they have time. A lot of them have time on their hands, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. As kids we were fascinated with airplanes, and that goes with me also. 25 years as a mechanic, that's what I really started doing to make toys and have time. My dad got me involved in that. He loved aircraft. And pilots, we all share that same well, my wife calls it a disease, but it's a good thing.
It's a good disease to have.
Yeah.
If you have the disease, Job really has a terminal case of it.
He does. He does, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Earlier in the program, we promised the story of John Thornton Walker, and in fact, Job, you're working on a book about the pilot who did not come home from World War II.
Right.
It's a sad and touching story, isn't it?
It really is. John grew up in Springfield, although he was born in a small town outside Springfield, became a pilot, enlisted in the Army, flew liaison planes in Italy in World War II, and died coming home to Springfield on leave.
Mm-hmm.
And he was buried in his wife's hometown in Indiana, so he literally did not come home.
Mm-hmm.
Although his family donated a lot of material for the book, and that's why I'm telling his story.
Mm-hmm. The family's involved. In fact, many of the mementos you have are from the family, aren't they?
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
So
The brass plaque that we have that was displayed at an airfield named after him is on display here now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for the visit.
You're welcome.
been terrific.
Thanks for coming out.
You bet. The AeroKnow Museum is worth a stop if you're an aviation enthusiast. And if you're an aviation enthusiast, Job is always looking for volunteer help as well. With another Illinois story in Springfield at Capitol Airport, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.